The heart-brain connection. So as we know, emotions profoundly impact our mental perspectives, but it's not just hormones. It's actually also a nervous system response from the mini brains, or the neurons, the connections within our heart affecting our brain, and also within our gut affecting our brain. And it's, again, really useful to be aware of these things because we allow ourselves to be more influenced by what we believe to be true or know to be true. And just being a little bit more aware of these things was something that I noticed allowed me to tap into letting emotions shift the way I think and let it shift my nervous system. The body-mind connection. Emotions are like emotional filters, as in they're lenses that we put over our cognitive function, our consciousness, and it colors everything we see. So the term seeing red is the idea that we are so jazzed up, we're so angry, or we're so frustrated that our attention actually narrows. And we only see through this red filter, and it actually stops us from seeing different nuances, which is great for survival. It's great for hyperfocus. It's great in small bouts. But if we live there too much or too far on this end of the sympathetic continuum, it really influences our capacity to think clearly and think creatively. On the other hand, there's also the saying rose-colored glasses. And I'm not encouraging people to be one way or another. I'm encouraging people to be aware that there is simply that every emotion, every emotional cocktail colors our reality, and it colors what information is available to us because we have a bias towards whatever the emotion is. And rose-colored glasses, again, is the idea that you are seeing everything in a positive light, which can sometimes often make you susceptible to making errors in judgment. But there's all kinds of lenses in between. Whoop, wrong way. So mini brains. We have a very complex neural network in our heart and our gut that communicates with our brain that influences our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And years ago, I was reading the book Supernatural by Dr. Joseph Dispenza, which I really liked. Some of his science was a little off in percentage of numbers. I think he said something like 90% of the neurons in our heart go to our brain. I don't think that was correct, but the idea is that there are neurons going from our heart to our brain that influence our mind, just like our mind influences our heart. And that goes from everything from simply controlling heart rate to having a thought influencing emotions to feeling an emotion that we're not quite sure why it's triggering us to then make us think different thoughts that make us react. And the more we actually are aware of this feeling, the more we can be aware that we start to feel something and we're not sure what it is. But it allows us to start embodying emotions, or again, understanding that when we consciously put ourselves into certain postures, when we think certain thoughts, when we experience gratitude more emotionally than cognitively, when we give ourselves a pause, we are allowing ourselves to tap back into this bidirectional neuron information exchange between the heart and the brain. So with this, it's good to be aware. We've talked about this a little bit before, but good to come back to. The nervous system is a two-way street, and it has affected our heart. Our emotions affect our brainwaves, and our brainwaves affect our heart and emotions. And we often think about controlling our emotions, but we can, again, tap in both directions. So we have on this continuum sympathetic mode and parasympathetic mode. So the idea that we are in fight or flight, hyperfocus, seeing red, way on this side of the continuum. And then on the other side, we have rest, digest, relaxation, safety, and both of these different modes have different hormones associated with them, and they have different brainwaves associated with them. So beta brainwaves are the ones the ones that are primarily associated with hyperfocus or just being awake on task. And alpha and theta brainwaves can be a little bit more about relaxation, dreams, creativity, and somewhere in between, or the capacity to switch back and forth and regulate our emotions, which are also on this continuum or very highly linked to it, allows us to really tap into the best of both worlds. Which brings us to the power of conscious choice. So now that we become more and more aware of all the different things that can affect our emotions, that can affect our thoughts, that can affect our body and how they bleed back into each other, we're actually much more able to consciously choose empowering emotional states and to know different ways to tap into them. So again, this relates back to Pareto's principle, the idea that 20% of the work gets you 80% of the results. And by having access to all the different entry points where you can do just a little bit of work that really enhances the feedback loop, so other aspects can easily just start moving more efficiently and contributing, this is where the real power is. And this is where it becomes much easier, where you don't become a Zen monk meditating to control your emotions. You can just adjust your physical body, pause a little longer in the concept of gratitude, understand gratitude. Remember, there's a connection between the heart and the brain. So the next step is really practicing. And practice we can do in day-to-day moments where you notice you're getting a little bit overrun by an emotion and you recognize it. And then you start shifting your attention state, which we'll be playing with the game of the gifts further in this course. We can do it in meditations, which is what the step-by-step walkthrough at the end of this section is going to be all about. You can try breath work. People talk about that all the time. I don't touch that in this course just because I think many people do a great job of explaining it, but this course will help you tap deeper into breath work if you choose to go that direction, and visualization, which is partially what we do when we take a little longer to step into gratitude, understand all the different ways, all the different definitions and types. So it's all really just leading back into itself.